Hello, Mount Dora. I'm Rob English, the president of the Mount Dora Area Chamber of Commerce, and we're excited to be bringing you another veteran video. Today, I'm with Charles Richardson, a Navy veteran who grew up in Seattle, and he's going to tell us his story, but it's a great story of things that we've shared prior to going on video. But Charles, you grew up in Seattle.
I did.
Take us from there. You went to basic training where?
San Diego.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Went down there in the winter of 65.
65. Now, you told me before, but you were in 65 to when did you get out?
74.
74. Okay.
Yeah.
So you talked about NOM. So tell us about was that your first trip overseas? Is when you went over there?
Yeah, I went to school for a year or so.
Okay.
I finally did get into a squadron in 1966, late. In 67, I went on my first detachment to Da Nang.
Da Nang. Okay.
We were flying night recon, taking photographs, infrared photography. We would fly up the Ho Chi Minh Trail, taking pictures. And then my job was to operate the cameras and the electronic countermeasures.
Okay.
And then and I would call in alpha strikes if we saw targets, and they were 3 minutes behind us, so they would come in and try to damage the enemy, and then coming back we would do damage reports to see what we got and what got through. And of course the intelligence gathered and everything was instrumental to the Tet Offensive. There was a lot of activity prior to that the year before.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now let me ask you, you were in 65 to 74,
right.
So I don't know if that's 9 or 10 years, but it's right along there.
9 years. Yeah.
9 years, yes sir. Did you regret getting out when you did, or was you just happy to get away from it all?
No, they wanted me to go on board a ship.
Okay.
And being in the Navy, that was to be expected.
That's pretty obvious.
I had, when I got back to the States from being in the Pacific, I got married and started a family.
Okay.
Took them over to Spain, served over there. And so when it came time to get on board ship, I had these small children that I was raising.
Not the best
and a wife.
situation.
And I thought, well, maybe now's the time to get out.
Okay.
So
now you had shared with me about the Patriot Guard Riders. Tell us what the Patriot Guard Riders are and their mission. We're talking military. There's definitely a mission there.
Well, the Patriot Guard Riders, it's a group of people that have respect and honor for our flag, for our country, and for our veterans that have served, and for our first responders, firefighters, paramedics, and police. And when there is a funeral scheduled, might be a World War II veteran, might be someone killed in action, we're invited to go, and we perform a number of services. We might be there to form a flag line in front of a funeral home where they're having
blocking the protesters.
Well, there's not so many protesters now today, so we're mostly there just to salute and render honors. We sometimes get on our motorcycles, a lot of bikes in this organization, and
a caravan out to the burial site.
We will escort out there with flag bikes, flags on the back of the bike, standing up, big flags.
Yes, sir.
And at the Bushnell is where I do most of my missions, right? Bushnell National Cemetery.
Yes, sir.
We'll form a flag line there, and as they're doing military honors, we will render salutes at the proper time. We stand silently and hold our flag.
Now, a typical ride when you're doing this is about how many? Just to get an idea, how many of you typically show up?
I've been anywhere from half a dozen to, I'm thinking there was one fellow that was killed in Fort Hood a few years ago.
Yes, sir.
And actually we did 2 of those guys buried out at Bushnell. And the escort on that was probably 200.
Wow. Now, you had also shared with me about your love and concern for people that have had PTSD, and you shared your situation with me. And I interviewed Tim Totten the other day, and what a great organization. And Charles is familiar with that organization.
Yeah, that's Keith.
Keith.
Keith
I'm sorry.
Totten.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, Keith Totten.
I call him Tim all the time.
There
He
you go.
doesn't mind.
Keith Totten. But so just talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I kind of dovetailed into this thing. I started out making beads for the vest, decorations, you know, and got a number of them here, some of which are kind of obvious. This is breast cancer awareness. This is breast cancer survivor beads. That's Vietnam service and Agent Orange. Also Vietnam service and also Vietnam defense, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
But I became aware, partially through some support groups that I was attending for PTSD, of a number, and the number is 22. If you've spoken with Keith, I know what you know what the 22
Yes.
stands for. I started making
Share
beads that
again
were
what the
similar.
22 stands for
The
our audience.
Well, the 22 is significant because American veterans with PTSD commit suicide on an average of 22 a day.
Yes, he mentioned that in the video.
That's right. And when I heard that number, I thought, no, that can't be right. I did some research. No, it was accurate. And something inside of me said, why aren't we doing something about this? I mean, a number like that is designed to shock you and get your attention, and it does.
It does.
22 every day, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I started thinking about what the problem with PTSD. I mean, I've gotten help. I came forward. Now, I have to admit, the first 2 years that I was in support with the VA, I just thought I was in there for anger management or something like that, you know. And I finally asked the guy that was leading our group. I said, "Have I got PTSD?" And everybody in the group laughed. What do you think you're here for? You know. Part of the problem is there's a stigma attached to PTSD. Combat fatigue, battle fatigue, shell shock, whatever you want to call it, it's the same animal. And there's a stigma to it. He's got PTSD. Well, he must be a coward. You know, and it can go worse than that.
Right.
So, but there is a stigma attached to it, and there shouldn't be. And the other thing is that there's a big taboo against suicide. I think suicide is a lot more prevalent in our society than most people realize because
I think so too.
nobody talks about it.
Exactly.
And the suicides take place in the shadows. These are men who have secluded themselves because they're having trouble dealing with simple things that you and I might deal with every day. Traffic situations infuriate them. Somebody honks a horn at them at the wrong time, or you know, cuts in front of them in a crosswalk or something, and they get angry about it. So the best way to avoid this anger is to avoid contact. So they hoard themselves up in a room by themselves. Not the best company for some of these boys.
Right.
And they don't go out and get help. And it's in these dark shadows where they live that they finally end up taking their life.
Now, the name of the organization again, Keith's organization, what's
Keith's
the name?
organization is One Team, One Fight, PTSD.
There you go. One team, one fight. You'll get to hear Keith speak at our breakfast November 8th at
As long
Lake
as we're
Reception.
plugging him, should I show?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay.
There you go, Keith.
There you go. One team, one fight.
PTSD.
There you go. Our veteran breakfast is November 8th in Lake Receptions, and we hope that you have bought a ticket to join us. If not, you'll get to see all the veterans that we've gone through this interview series. But in closing, I want to close with this. I asked Charles, I said, how long have you looked like Santa Claus? And he said, well, let me tell you the story. And I'll tell you the short story. because it's a great story. But in short, he decided that he wanted to, in a way, to give back after he went through some trials and tribulations himself, an experience with family with Alzheimer's. And what he does is he goes into the children's homes, into the Alzheimer's unit, and he actually is Santa Claus. It's an amazing story. I want you to come out. I want you to visit with him at Lake Receptions because he and his wife Sherry will be there. It's a great, great story.
Did someone tell you you were in charge?
Yes, absolutely.
I have to tell you about these beads here.
Yes,
these are yours, by the way.
Thank you.
Each strand of bead has 22 beads on it. The colors are teal, red, and black.
Okay.
The teal represents PTSD. That's the designated color for that. The red is for the blood that we lose, 22 a day. And the black is the depression that comes hand in hand with PTSD. Not just the depression of the person with PTSD, but also the depression that goes through every one of us when we lose one of these heroes. And that's what they are. They're heroes.
They are.
It spreads throughout the community. Next to it is another bead chain that has 22, and you'll recognize that as the American flag. And if you look at them together, you'll notice that they mirror each other.
They do.
These are American veterans that we're talking about.
Yep.
And if you look at it just dangling off your key fob like that, it's an inverted American flag. And in the military, the only time you fly our national symbol upside down is in dire emergency.
Right.
You're out of water, you're out of ammo, you're out of medical supplies.
Right.
You're about to go under. You
Right.
need help desperately. And when I first did that, I don't invert the American flag lightly. I asked several people and they said, yes, it has to be inverted. It has to be. That's for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Comes with a lifetime guarantee, by the way. If a bead falls off, some people think that's a bad thing because now there's not 22. I think it's an omen that maybe we saved.
Roll it back to 21.
Maybe we saved one life. But if you want it replaced, I'll replace it for you.
This is a great story, an especially great story because my father-in-law is a Navy veteran. He's a Navy SEAL, and he's also in the Alzheimer's unit right now, fighting for exactly what we just talked about. And in closing, I've said it with every one of these videos, I believe. Right now, I believe in America, and we talked about it. I believe in your right to free speech and your right to protest. But right now, when the flag is raised, the national anthem is sung, you stand up. You salute it, you put your hand over your heart, but you recognize the freedom that this country has been earned by the blood and the lives that have been given from the veterans that have allowed you to do this. I'm Rob Inglis, the president of the Mount Dora Area Chamber of Commerce, and again, we're excited to be bringing you another video, and we will see you November 8th at 7:30 at Lake Receptions. Thank you, Charles.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for letting me run over.